Rafael had always thought of himself as the sort of person who could stand alone if he needed to. He was calm under pressure, steady in a conversation, and not easily swayed by whatever everyone else happened to be doing. The kind of bloke who trusted his own judgment. And for most of his life, that had served him well. At work, in family discussions, even in those awkward moments when a room quietly agreed on something he didn't quite believe, Rafael would usually hold his ground. Not rudely, just firmly. He told himself, if it doesn't feel right, I won't pretend it does. Then came one ordinary afternoon that changed the whole picture. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no big confrontation. Just a simple situation, the kind that slips past you before you realize what's happening. Rafael was in a small group, looking at something that was plainly off. He knew it. He could see it straight away. But one by one, the others confidently agreed with each other, nodding as if the answer was obvious. And suddenly, Rafael felt it. That tiny but powerful hesitation. A flicker of doubt. Not about the facts, but about himself. Have you ever had that feeling? That split second where you think, I know I'm right, but what if I'm the one missing something? That's the strange thing about people. We like to imagine we make decisions purely through logic, especially as we get older and hopefully a bit wiser. But in real life, our brains are constantly balancing two forces, the need to be right and the need to belong. And more often than we'd like to admit, belonging wins. Not because we're weak and not because we stop thinking. It happens because, deep down, being rejected has always been a serious risk for human beings. For most of our history, being pushed out of the group could mean danger, isolation, even not surviving at all. So the brain learned to treat social approval as something very valuable. That's where Rafael's moment becomes so relatable. He wasn't suddenly foolish. He was human. And once you understand that, the real question becomes even more interesting. If smart, independent people can be pulled in by a group, how exactly does that happen? What is it about social pressure that can make us doubt what we can clearly see with our own eyes? Let's walk into the experiment that exposed this weakness in all of us. Rafael thought he knew exactly who he was. He was the kind of bloke who didn't back down easily, who trusted his own eyes, his own judgment, his own gut. In his mind, that was a strength. While other people seemed to drift with whatever the group was saying, Rafael liked to believe he stood apart. He wasn't rude about it, not at all. He just assumed he'd be the one person in the room who wouldn't be swayed. Then came that ordinary moment, the kind that doesn't look important until you're already inside it. He was sitting with a few others when a simple question came up. Nothing dramatic. No big moral debate. Just something plain, something obvious. And yet, one by one, the people around him started giving the same wrong answer. At first, Rafael almost laughed to himself. Surely they were joking. Surely someone would correct it. But nobody did. The room stayed calm, almost too calm, and suddenly the silence felt heavier than the mistake itself. That's the strange thing about pressure. It doesn't always arrive like a shove. Sometimes it comes as a pause. A look, a shared nod, a quiet sense that if you speak up, you'll be the odd one out. Rafael felt it immediately. He could say what he really thought, sure. But then what? The awkwardness, the attention, the possibility that everyone else would turn and look at him like he was the one who'd missed something obvious. In that moment, belonging started to weigh more than being right. And that's where many smart, independent people stumble. Not because they can't think clearly, but because being human means caring what the group thinks. That's exactly what the famous Asch experiment showed. People would knowingly go along with an answer they suspected was wrong, just to avoid standing out. Not because they lacked intelligence, because the brain treats social rejection like a real threat. Deep down, our minds are wired to keep us connected, accepted, safe. For our ancestors, being excluded could mean losing protection, food, and support. That old survival instinct still lives in us today, even in a modern room with nothing more dangerous than a wrong answer on the table. And once you see that, it becomes a bit unsettling. How many times have you agreed just to keep things smooth? How often have you swallowed your real opinion because the atmosphere in the room felt too heavy to challenge? It happens more than most of us would like to admit. The good news is, recognizing that pressure, gives you power over it. The moment you notice that urge to blend in, you can pause, breathe, and ask yourself a very simple question. Do I actually agree? Or am I just trying to avoid discomfort? And that little question can change everything. If this sounds familiar, give the video a like so more people can see it too. And think about this for a moment. When was the last time you felt pulled to go along with the crowd, even when something didn't sit right? In the next part, we'll look at how to spot that pressure before it starts steering your decisions. So when Rafael finally sat with the discomfort of it all, the lesson landed harder than he expected. It wasn't just about a line test on a screen or a room full of people giving the same wrong answer. It was about something much older, much deeper, and much more human. The need to belong. The fear of standing out. That small, almost invisible voice that whispers, maybe it's easier to just go along. And that's the unsettling part, isn't it? Most of us like to think we'd speak up. We tell ourselves we're independent, logical, hard to sway. But the truth is, social pressure doesn't always come in a loud, obvious form. Sometimes it arrives as a pause, a raised eyebrow, a group laugh, a polite silence when you disagree. Sometimes it's enough to make a smart person second-guess what they already know. That's what made the Asch experiments so powerful. They showed that conformity isn't about weakness or lack of intelligence. It's about wiring. Our brains are tuned to notice exclusion, because for most of human history, being pushed out of the group could mean real danger. So even now, in a modern world with phones, offices, family dinners, and crowded supermarkets, that ancient survival instinct still flickers on. And sometimes it overrides reason. But once you see it, you can start to catch in real time. You notice when your opinion changes only after everyone else speaks. You notice when you agree faster than you usually would, just to keep the room comfortable. You notice that uncomfortable moment when your gut says one thing, but the crowd is leaning another way. That's the moment to slow down. Ask yourself, do I really believe this? Or am I borrowing certainty from the people around me? Because that's where real freedom lives. Not in always being different for the sake of it, but in knowing when to think for yourself. In having the confidence to pause, to question, to let your own judgment breathe before the noise of everyone else takes over. If this story made you think about a time you followed the crowd, even when something fell off, give the video a like if you found it useful, and tell us in the comments what happened. Have you ever felt pressured to do something against your will? I'd really like to hear your story. And if you enjoy videos that make everyday behavior make a bit more sense, make sure you subscribe, because there's plenty more hidden in the way people think, react, and influence each other every single day.